I visited your swag store.
Good.
So
thanks for wearing the hat. Yeah.
Yeah, I figured it would be too shiny up here if both of us were were uncapped. So you have some news today. We're going to cover a lot of ground. Obviously, you and I would much prefer to talk about the tech and all the cool products. I think the FriendTech experience on Base with the Coinbase wallet and the whole progressive web app experience was one of the best, most seamless experiences I've had with an app. I think that's the future. We could spend a half hour talking about that.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we're in New York City in the belly of the beast. And so we have some work to do to make sure that we can survive and thrive here and build all these cool applications. So you have some exciting news today. We're going to talk about Stand with Crypto, which was announced a couple weeks ago. Why don't we start just the couple minutes on your year in policy, and then we'll kind of dovetail that into the Stand with Crypto Alliance.
Yeah, well, like you, I mean, I got into this because I want to build a better financial system for the world, and tech and products are the way that I was expecting to do that. Turns out this year we've had to turn our attention, of course, to the policy side, as many of you have as well. And it's a really unfair environment that we're in right now, where every startup in the space is just getting hit with a subpoena and a Wells notice. And there's a really concerted, focused effort right now to try and curtail and kill this industry, right? Specifically, I think the two actors I've seen that are most responsible for that are probably the SEC chair, Gary Gensler, and Elizabeth Warren. That does not represent the point of view of the rest of the US government that I interact with, that you interact with. The members of Congress are very thoughtful on this. They're very reasonable. They recognize this industry has a lot of innovation potential, and they want to protect consumers with reasonable regulation. And so we need to make sure that the SEC does not get weaponized for the political agenda of a couple of rogue actors that are happening. And to do that, the crypto industry is going to have to get a little bit more sophisticated and powerful in terms of our lobbying efforts and our political power that we can bring to bear in this 2024 election. So we are, Coinbase helped create this website, standwithcrypto.org. We want to help bring the whole community together, all of the people who've used crypto, all the companies in the space, to come together and say, you know what, we're going to elect candidates in this country who are sensible about, and they're pro-technology, and they're pro-builders, they're pro-innovation. And any candidate in our government who cannot get behind this should be voted out of office, period, full stop. And that's going to require us all to stop building products. We need to keep building products, but we're also going to have to stop once in a while and say, let me call my representative, let me donate, let me show up at a town hall. And there's going to be a couple key moments, with these bills going through the House later this year, with the election next year, where we really need to make our voice heard as an industry. And so standwithcrypto.org is a place where I would encourage everybody to go sign up and help us get started on that goal.
You guys had the no politics at work policy like a couple years ahead of everyone else. You caught some flack for that. I've always said pro-crypto policy. I'm sorry, I don't want to hear anything else, right?
Yeah.
We're going to have Vivek on. We're going to have Kirsten Gillibrand on tomorrow. We're going to have Richie Torres. We want to hear both sides, but we want to at least hear people that are going to be thoughtful, even if they disagree with us. Not this kind of side door shadow ban apparatus that we essentially have because of really one rogue senator who has enormous power that people don't give her credit for. The tweet the other day, someone very smart said, "Oh, she's passed one bill in her 3 terms in office." I was like, you don't understand. That's not the point. She places people in high places of authority in the executive branch because she's so outspoken and she's able to kind of work this angle. So I think this is a misconception that the industry has, and I think even outside of the industry looking in, post-FTX, we basically get all the bullshit from Sam. He donated to all the wrong people. Now they don't like us. He broke every single possible conceivable rule, and he made us all look bad. He wasn't even, like the Mean Girls line. She doesn't even go here. He was a freaking mercenary that was running an offshore illegal exchange, and he's going to go to jail for a long time, as he should. But now we're all dealing with the fallout, and now we're all dealing with this, and are probably going to have to continue to deal with this for years. It feels like the barbarians are at the gate when it comes to the political realm. And I know you got called out kind of a little bit from Bill Gurley indirectly. You were just at the All-In Summit last week. And a lot of people here have probably seen his bit on regulatory capture. What would you say to people that say, okay, Coinbase is in the driver's seat now for some of these bills, so if we do make some progress, you're basically the new monopolists, right? Out with the old and with the new. How do do you kind of balance Coinbase's approach to let's get this stuff done, let's do it fairly, let's do it thoughtfully, without basically falling into the trap of, okay, well now we're basically JP Morgan with a new back end, right?
Yeah.
And stay true to like some of that spirit that you've been, I think, trying to imbue in the products on like the Coinbase wallet side and Base and some of the on-chain work.
Yeah. I think it's a totally fair question, and regulatory capture is a really big issue, right? There's a lot of good research on this where when a company does engage and regulation gets created, it pulls the ladder up behind you, and it makes it hard for startups to operate, and only big companies can operate. And so there's a real danger. I kind of go back and forth on this. Like as a citizen of the US, my view is we probably don't want too much regulation. A lot of this regulation has good intentions, but it backfires. But then I go to DC, and the conversation is basically, well, there's no world where you're not going to be regulated. You either we're going to do it for you, or you can be part of the conversation. And so in that incentive system, I guess I have to take the latter option and say, okay, well, we want to at least be part of the conversation and make sure it's not terrible regulation. The kinds of things that we can push for, and this is what I do when I'm in DC, is I tell people, well, first of all, we're only talking about the centralized exchanges here. Yep. So if you're storing customer funds, you should be probably regulated kind of like in traditional financial services. But self-custodial wallets should not be regulated as financial services. DeFi protocols should not be regulated as financial services. They're never taking possession of customer funds, so they should be regulated like a software industry, lightly regulated. That's where we're going to get a lot of the good regulation. I've also been pushing for things like a sandbox for innovation, right? Where
yep.
If you can't afford, startups can never afford $20 million in legal fees a year. And so if you're below a certain threshold in terms of AUM or revenue or whatever, you should be able to operate in that sandbox. And some other countries around the world have done that. So I think you're right, though. This is a really big risk. We're basically, the industry now has started to call for sensible regulation, and there's a couple bills going through the House, because we basically want protection from, Gensler and the SEC, who's just coming out and attacking everyone. The judicial branch is good at that. Hopefully Congress can help create that with some sensible rules that just, puts the SEC in its place so it's not having this turf war with the CFTC. But I do worry about that too. If we get the wrong kind of regulation, that's worse than having none at all.
I think that's what a lot of people don't understand. I've heard it. People refer to the DC situation as, people that go down there think they're going to go into like the West Wing environment. People from the outside looking in think it's House of Cards. It's Veep, right?
I haven't seen that show, but yeah.
It's a good line if you've seen those shows. But apparently no one here watches TV. Come on, man. Like, jeez. 3 very good shows. Strongly recommend for the weekend when you're recharging after the conference. But the long story short is it's super dysfunctional and it's tough to get anything done. But then to add to like the chaos of it all and how maddening this process has been, what you just said seems very reasonable, right? We had Chris Giancarlo on stage earlier today. What he says is nuanced and reasonable and thoughtful, and he's like, he's trying to like actually regulate like for like. Let's regulate centralized exchanges. Oh, but we need to latch DeFi on there. It's like, no, we can't.
Yeah.
Right? We can't support this because we can't. Otherwise, it's not going to exist here. So how do you and your team, you've almost got like a split personality when you're having these conversations because you've invested so much the last couple of years in those things that I mentioned, Base, the Coinbase non-custodial wallet, some of these other apps. And it's like you're basically defending 2 different companies and like talking, debating against yourself almost when you're having some of these conversations in DC. Yeah. Does anyone get this? Does when you have these conversations, do folks down there appreciate this nuance, and who are they and who should we support?
Yeah, well, I think most of the time, I think they do get it. They're mostly focused on the centralized exchanges right now. And whenever somebody does try to bring up DeFi or self-custodial, I try to say, hold off, that's not a financial service business. Let's put that aside for another. We got enough to figure out just with the centralized stuff. Let's take that as a win and then move forward. So I try to shape it in that direction. But I do think that's really important for us as a company. Sometimes it feels like a contradiction, but we're just, to us, it feels very natural. We need to get a lot of the fiat money in the world into crypto. So that's why we need these centralized exchanges that serve as a bridge between fiat and crypto. But once you have it in crypto, why did we build all this stuff? We're doing it because we want there to be a more free and fair and global financial system that's crypto to crypto. And so I'm super excited about Coinbase Wallet, our self-custodial wallet, Base, our layer 2 solution. To me, it's not a contradiction at all. We want there to be a robust, healthy economy that's purely crypto to crypto. It's based on these decentralized protocols. And the bridge to get in, if that's going to be regulated as a financial service business, so be it.
Where is the biggest difference? Is it on party lines or is it age when you're talking to policymakers in terms of their ability to actually be reasonable with some of these pieces of legislation?
Well, it's both. I mean, the age, you've probably seen those charts of the average age in Congress is like a hockey stick. That's not a good hockey stick graph. Usually those are good in startups. So that worries me a lot. A lot of times the folks that do get it, it's because their kids are using it, right? Or their staffers are using it. And between the two parties, I would say, I have to say, the Biden administration has really been terrible for crypto. I mean, there's no other way to put it. Now, we do have a lot of allies in the Democratic Party, and to get any kind of legislation passed, it's going to have to be bipartisan.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you've mentioned a number of the people that have been stepping up, and we had a number of Democratic House members step up to get bipartisan support of the bills, the FIT21 bill and the stablecoin bill earlier this year. Kirsten Gillibrand in the Senate. So there's a lot of good supporters on the left. I'd say the Republican side, it's been more unanimous. It's harder to find true crypto skeptics on the right, but there are some there too.
Well, I think if you start to sound as crazy as me, then we really have some problems in DC. I mean, I'm in bed at night like Arya Stark, like Bob Casey, John Tester, Sherrod Brown, Joe Manchin. And I think we're going to displace all four of them, by the way. So that kind of brings me to another bit of news that you have today. Putting your money where your mouth is.
Yeah.
You want to share this call to action and kind of rally point?
Yeah, well, so a lot of what we do in DC is we go there and try to educate people and tell them the story of why this is important. But we have to be realists. Money moves the needle here as well. And that means donations from not just companies, but really all of us in the industry coming together. If you look at the oil and gas lobby or the banking lobby, I mean, they're spending, I don't know, on the order of $100 million a year trying to help shape rules and regulations in DC. And for better or worse, that's how our system works. And so for the crypto industry to be taken seriously, we need to start to move larger amounts of money. And that's going to be a grassroots thing, but it's also going to come from companies and individuals. So there's a super PAC out there. Actually, you first introduced me or made me aware of Mike Cardcase over there at Fairshake PAC, which we both have met with. They did a really good job. You should talk a little bit about what they did last year. But the quick announcement for me is, I decided to put $1 million personally into that super PAC, and then Coinbase is going to be donating some more money in the future. So I think it's important to get actually a bunch of people. There's a bunch of companies in the industry that are going to coming together to get them a big enough slug of money. Hopefully we can get them over 50 million, plus, where they can really have a conversation with every single one of these candidates that are, contesting open congressional seats and say, look, we're here to educate you about crypto, but at the end of the day, we need to know, are you with us or are you against us? Are we going to be running ads for you or against you? And just to put it bluntly, I think in 2024, some people need to win an election or lose an election because of their crypto stance. And DC is suddenly going to take this very seriously, no matter what age they are. Yeah. So, you should talk a little bit more about Fairshake and how they came on your radar and some of their track record, because I think you were onto it before I was.
Yeah, I mean, they're terrific. I donated personally. Messari's donated. We'll be supporting them again this cycle. I don't know if I'm going to do $1 million, but I'll do a little bit. So give me $1 million to borrow and I'll put it in.
Okay. Give me an IOU for that.
Yeah, exactly. Basically, we'll give you a policy 101, electoral policy 101, and all the things that Brian and I have learned that we never really had interest in learning, but have been kind of forced to. You support incumbents, right? That's the rule. You support incumbents because the incumbent win rate is over 90%. So you try to find the incumbents that are excellent, that are thoughtful. You might disagree with them on stuff, but you try to have people that you support that you can at least pick up the phone and have a conversation and say, we appreciate your leadership and the thoughtful disagreements that we've had, and those are the people that you want to continue to support, both with phone calls, with grassroots donations, and then if you do have the means with larger checks and fundraisers. That is a long-term game, right? The second rule of electoral politics is if there's an open seat, you got to get your folks running and in that seat, because those are the ones you win. The incumbent win rate's 90+%. So if someone wins an open seat race, they're going to be in there for a long time. And Mike and his team did a great job picking the districts, picking the seats last time around that they were going to go after and try to really support candidates on an early basis. And I think they ended up going 17 for 18 in the general with only about like 12 or 13 million in total. So, to Brian's point, these super PACs in other industries can raise $50, $100 million. I mean, we're getting outspent by like the fucking pipe welders of Ohio right now. So, folks, the time to show up is now if that's our comparable set. Now, the third rule that you're not supposed to talk about, going back to my Arya Stark comment, is at some point we need to put a couple of L's on the board for people that are outright hostile. And those 4 names that I mentioned are in extremely vulnerable tight Senate races. That's not what Fair Shake is doing right now. They're supporting the folks that are good in the industry on a bipartisan basis and putting their money where their mouth is. The hope is we can raise enough money for what I'd call the good guy PAC, which is Fair Shake, as a deterrent, let's say, so that people see that crypto actually steps up and is involved in this process and puts their money where their mouth is. Because if we can end up raising a bunch of money to support thoughtful leaders on both sides of the aisle on the crypto issue, then they know if the bills go sideways this fall, which unfortunately it looks like they might, there's more money in the banana stand that is ultimately going to get aimed at 4 Senate seats that could swing the party in control based on this particular community. And that's the reality. Like, that's where we are. I don't think that's fun for us to be this far in the weeds. But I mean, how do you navigate that? I mean, you famously know politics are worse, and no politics at work. And now it's like, well, the fight's here, and we have no choice because it's existential.
Yeah, well, I mean, we always made that clear, which we said we're apolitical except as it comes to our mission. And if the mission is increasing economic freedom in the world with crypto, then we've got to engage on these kind of issues. I think what I would tell people is, to the extent you can help and donate, we're talking like small donations. These matter, $100. And so fairshakepac.com is the PAC there. Standwithcrypto.org, you can scan the QR code. And even if you can't donate, I think showing up to vote, sharing it on social, showing up at town halls. A lot of when we go into these congressional meetings, a lot of them we ask the staffers there, and it's like they're giving a report to their boss every week of like, this is how many people in our district called. Not email is like kind of a low commitment way to do it. They get a lot of email, but people who actually pick up the phone and call, it shows a higher level of commitment, and they'll say this many people called this week about X.
Just think about how much you hate getting phone calls now. Like, we don't use the phone app on our phones, so they hate it too.
Yeah, we actually
especially if it's folks that are angry. So
yeah, and we try to make it super simple with standwithcrypto.org/call. It helps you dial it, have the right script, everything. You can put it in your own words, but I mean, we've got to be pounding the phones. We've got to be blowing up their phones around these key moments and these key issues.
You have like a Selkis AI filter for people that want to be angry versus like the Brian AI for like the other script?
Just do whatever feels natural, be yourself. But I don't know. I mean, I'm angry about this stuff, right? America is supposed to be a technology leader, and we're supposed to celebrate innovation here. And yes, we have to be honest and also admit that this industry has attracted some bad people, right? And that cast a shadow over it, but that doesn't mean that the industry should be banned or curtailed in some way. There's a lot of legitimate innovation potential here. The bad people should go to jail, just like Bernie Madoff or Enron. You don't kind of shut down the whole industry. And these rogue actors in our government do not have the authority to shut down the industry. The fact that they don't have the authority, they couldn't do it the legitimate way through Congress. We're not going to allow them to do it an illegitimate way. This is a free country, and we have the right to use new technologies that we think will better our lives and the people around us. So I'm pissed. I'm mad about it, and I think we need to collectively bring together our will as an organization. Like 52 million Americans have used crypto. That's 5x the number of people who have an electric vehicle, for instance, right? It's way more than the number of people who have a union card. So if we actually just came together and acted as a one unit, this would be probably one of the most powerful constituencies in America.
Well, I'm glad you're fired up. It's a good change of pace because I felt like the crazy guy for like the first year and a half after the infrastructure bill, and it's been encouraging to see some people take action. Frankly, as a last ditch effort, there is no alternative right now, but to kind of step up and kind of stand up for the industry. So let's just do the quick math here, right? $100 million number, right? I think that's probably on a cycle-to-cycle basis. You mentioned oil and gas. That's probably what we should be thinking about as an industry. 52 million Americans own crypto. 1% of them is 500,000. $100. We're halfway there on a grassroots basis. If the average donation was from 1% of the crypto users, we're actually putting their money where their mouth was, supporting this effort either through direct donation to their congressman, through a phone call that takes 15 minutes, and the corporates are going to do the rest. Like we're going to do the rest. You know, you and I go to a bunch of fundraisers. You know, we're doing a lot more than $100 each, right?
Yeah.
So I do think if you're an executive, it's like the time is now, and you should draft off of some of the work that's being done. One of my favorite things that you guys adopted, is it live yet, the leaderboard?
Which one?
The leaderboard?
Yeah, it's live on standwithcrypto.org.
All right, so I was thrilled because I have thought for a while that we need a leaderboard that is basically a hall of fame. And or a wall of fame or a wall of shame, I guess, depending how you put it. But you can self-report now. You want to talk about this feature of Stand with Crypto?
Oh yeah. Well, so we've made it easier for people who donate through there. You know, you can get on the leaderboard, and we're going to make it where you can collect other ways. If you don't want to donate, you can also do it through other mechanisms, right? Showing up at town halls, sharing on social, calling. And basically collect like NFTs that are minted for each of those actions to sort of raise your hand and say, I care about crypto, I care about this in America, and eventually the world, by the way. Hopefully we'll expand it to the world after that. So we've set that up as a leaderboard. You can kind of try to go in there and take the top spot. I think we also...
it's gamified, so we're going to know if you're not putting money in. Like if you're one of the speakers at this conference, we're going to know.
Yeah.
We're going to call you.
Yeah, and there's a lot more we need to do on the site, by the way. It's still in the very early stages, so if there's anything you see that are kind of rough edges, send us feedback, keep working with us. But we want to make it easy also to donate directly to the candidates through that site. I mean, this was an idea you had talked about, which I really liked, which was we have candidate scorecards on there, right? So you can basically see a collection of all of their public statements on crypto, and we've given every one of them, or through a third party, an A through F grade. And so you can go in there and see who in your jurisdiction is pro or against. We'll have candidates show up there as well. And if somebody, there has to be a political consequence, right? Like when we see this news come out and someone's saying something that's stupid about crypto, or they're putting their name on some list of some dumb thing, their score has to drop. There has to be a political consequence for this. And until we've internalized that, rewards and punishments for this very important industry, I don't think we're going to get the traction we want.
I think we've touched on this a bit, but I just, I'll ask it like very pointedly. For the folks that are in this, they're techno-progressives, they're libertarians, they're like, I'm in this for the tech, I don't care about this, we're going to route around them. What would you say?
I'm with you. I mean, that describes me, I would say.
But do you think that's feasible?
Well, the reality is that we live in a country that has a government. And, look, I'm very grateful to be an American. I think this country has incredible liberties. Just the fact that I can come here on stage with you and openly criticize members of our government, that would get me thrown in jail in China, right? So we have incredible liberties here in the US, but we also have a government that is sometimes uneducated. It's a different it's an octogenarian government, it's sclerotic, it's bureaucratic. And so I don't think that we as an industry want to be like all about politics. I think, I think we should take like 5-10% of our time and effort collectively, make sure we go send a very clear message, and then we can fucking get back to building. Like that's why I wanted to be in this industry. I'm an engineer at heart. Like I just want to take great technology and build things which improve the world, bring more economic freedom in this case, and a whole bunch of other things with Web3. So yeah, but if we don't send a clear message, we're not going to be able to go build the stuff we need to build.
We've got an election in 15 months. Let's say we lose everything, right? All those Senate seats that I mentioned, maybe we get more hostile senators in. Dianne Feinstein is up for re-election, and Katie Porter, who's running for open seat, she's basically left of Elizabeth Warren. So, it's not a foregone conclusion that things are going to get better, right? Paint the scenario where, what happens if we turn around in 2 years, the leadership is as bad or worse as it is right now on some of these issues? Like, what does Coinbase do? What do you think that means for the U.S. industry?
Well, first of all, I don't think that's going to happen. I think we've got a lot of wind in our sails, and I think people are the American citizens are pissed, and they recognize that something needs to change. So I don't think that'll happen. But let's just say for a second that it did. I don't ever give up, right? There's always something you can do, and the law is a function of geography. It's latitude and longitude, right? And so we have a whole bunch of efforts we can make in terms of international expansion. If we see a bunch of crypto adoption happening in Nigeria or India or whatever, and like we'll go work on that for 4 years, and then we'll come back and we'll do it again. The beauty of America is that every 4 to 8 years, you get an opportunity. The winds blow one way, and then they blow the other way because people get tired of one thing or another. And so, we as an industry, we're going to outlast any administration, any SEC chair, even any member of Congress, even though they seem to never give up their seats. And so this industry is going to be around for centuries, and we're not going to give up. I'm not going to give up. There's always something we can do, and I think the biggest thing we can do outside of all the stuff we've already mentioned is we just need to build products that more and more people benefit from, because ultimately the politicians they care about the people in their districts. Mm-hmm. And they care if we're building things that are useful to people. And so crypto to date has started to branch out of just speculative trading, right? Like stablecoins are 150 billion, NFTs are tens of billions, DeFi is tens of billions. We have cool things on the horizon with layer 2 and ENS and like new forms of capital formation and games and like all the cool stuff that's on the horizon with Web3. We need to go make that stuff a reality. That's the part that's on us. I think that's the part where I would give myself like a low grade, actually. Is like, if I look at the last 5 years, why is it still so goddamn hard in our product to actually go use one of these dApps, right? You have to learn how to bridge to layer 2 and move it to a self-custodial wallet and understand what a private key is. Frankly, it's amazing to me that so many people have used crypto, given how high friction it is. And so we need to take those 5-6 steps, get it down to 1. We need to take every layer 1 transaction, which takes $5 to $25 and 10 to 60 minutes, and get it under 1 second and 1 cent. Right? There's a dashboard internally at Coinbase that I push the team to create, which is measure the cost and the confirmation time of every transaction on our platform. And it's like 20 minutes and $7 or something average right now. We need to, with layer 2, we need as the default, we have to get it down to under 1 second and 1 cent over time. Then we have a real impetus to see some of these new use cases emerge. That's fully on us. Like, we can't blame the politicians and the regulators for that. And so if we keep building useful stuff, the downstream effects will also be really positive.
Pragmatic, thoughtful, forward-looking. People ask me, am I actually going to run for Senate? Are you going to run for office? Like, you're starting to sound like you've been around DC a little bit.
I feel like I still don't understand DC, and hell no, I'm not running for office. But I am going to keep building stuff in this industry and trying to figure out how DC works.
Neither one of us are going to run for office. I hate to break it to everybody, but we do want to get more pro-crypto politicians in the door. So
yeah.
Final couple minutes here, Brian. Calls to action for the folks in the room. Go to Stand with Crypto.
Scan the QR code. Yep. Sign up. Mint an NFT.
You can also go to the activation upstairs. The Coinbase team has done a great job with their activation upstairs in their lounge with Stand with Crypto is pretty prominent up there. That's where I got the hat. So
yeah, grab some swag. Call your member of Congress. That's like an easy one everybody can do. Please help us with that. It actually really matters. Yeah. And vote and donate and help bring 3 or 4 of your friends into this too and get them to come sign up. If we actually can get organized and get to 1 million or plus members in crypto that are willing to raise their hand and say, this issue matters to me as a voter, we're going to move mountains.
I don't really do softball interviews. If we were talking purely about Coinbase, I think I would have probably given you a couple more hard conversations, but I really wanted to close day 2 with this, which is a call to action and hopefully a little bit of a wake-up call and a longer form exposition on why this is so important, why the time is now, and how folks like Brian and his team are trying to make it easy and stand up some of this infrastructure that a lot of people talk about, but is very difficult to pull off. So I think it has been encouraging to see a couple of the adults in the room finally say enough is enough, and we're going to fight this if we have to. And I think it's difficult to sue your regulators, and it's difficult to have some of these conversations in DC after someone a year before you just went in and basically self-immolated on Capitol Hill and blew us all up in the process. But it's a slog. We'll keep going. And you deserve a lot of credits. You've taken a lot of shit over the years. I'm very happy, for one, that you're having like a moment right now where people I think are finally recognizing not just you, but I think your team and the leadership that you guys have shown in the industry. So credit where it's due. Last softball you're ever getting from me. So,
thanks, Brian.
But thank you very much, Brian Armstrong, everyone. That was great.
Thanks.